Don't smile at him. I heard the warning in my own head 1 second too late. Victor Hale had already smiled first, soft and polished, the kind of smile powerful men use when they want a lie to look expensive. My finger pressed the shutter before I understood why. One quiet click disappeared under the applause leaking through the ballroom walls. But across the service hallway, Victor stopped moving like he had heard it anyway. I stood frozen behind a rack of clean tablecloths with my camera against my chest, my knees bent, my back pressed to cold metal shelving. The hallway smelled of lemon polish, warm beef, and money pretending not to rot. 10 feet away, his reflection floated in the oval mirror above a catering cart, silver hair, perfect tuxedo, patient eyes, the kind of face that had never once entered a room expecting to be doubted. The man with him wore a red lapel pin shaped like a cross. I had photographed him earlier near the Champagne Tower, close to the private elevators and far from every real conversation. He did not look like a donor. He looked like a locked door with a pulse. Victor handed him a folded gala program without shaking his hand, and that was what made me lift the camera. Rich men shook hands even when they hated each other. They liked proof that the room saw them being civilized. This exchange wanted no witnesses. Blackwell cannot leave tonight with the board still loyal to him, Victor said, his voice low enough that I almost convinced myself I had invented it. The man with the red pin slid the program inside his jacket. Then he said, "Make sure the girl doesn't leave with the camera." My mouth dried so fast, my tongue stuck to my teeth. The girl, not me. My hands went stupid as I opened the camera and popped the memory card free. It fell into my palm, smaller than a postage stamp. Too small to be the reason someone might follow me into a parking garage. Footsteps moved in the hall, slow, confident. Not searching yet, because men like that always assumed panic would do half the work for them. I looked toward the rear exit, but a mop bucket blocked half the door, and beyond the wired glass window, a security guard stood with his back turned, laughing into his phone. My left heel had been peeling inside for 2 weeks because I kept telling myself rent mattered more than shoes. I shoved the card under the loose lining, pressed it flat with my thumb, and stood just as the prep room door opened. Nathaniel Blackwell filled the doorway without touching either side of it. I knew his face because everyone at the gala knew his face. Dark blonde hair brushed back, pale gray eyes. A tuxedo cut so perfectly it made every other expensive suit in the hotel look rented. He had the kind of calm that did not ask for space because people gave it before he arrived. He did not look at my camera first. He looked at my closed hand, then my shoes, then the hallway behind him. "Claire Whitaker," he said. I hated that my name sounded steadier in his voice than it had in my own head. "You were not assigned back here." I raised the camera a little, as if plastic and glass could defend me. I needed a new card. His eyes flicked to the empty slot on the side of the camera. 1 second. Less than that, enough. "Did Victor see you?" I made myself blink like innocence could be arranged on command. "I don't know what you mean." Blackwell stepped inside and closed the door behind him softly. Not a slam, not a threat. Somehow worse. Outside, applause rose again, polite and hollow, like a room full of people clapping for their own good taste. His gaze moved over my face the way a man might inspect damage after a crash. "You're lying badly." "Then stop asking questions you already answered." Something almost changed in his expression. Not amusement, not warmth. More like he had expected fear and found a spine still standing there, thin but stubborn. A cartwheel whispered past the door and stopped. Blackwell turned his head, and the room seemed to shrink around us. He opened the door 2 inches, looked through the crack, then shut it again without a sound. When he faced me, his voice dropped so low I felt it more than heard it. "In 10 seconds, someone will walk in here for your camera." My fingers tightened around the strap until it bit into my skin. "And what do you want?" He held out his arm, not touching me, leaving 1 careful inch of air between his sleeve and mine. "The next 5 minutes, you stand beside me." "Why would I trust you? You shouldn't." The handle behind him turned. Blackwell's eyes stayed on mine, steady and unreadable. "But if you step away now, they'll know you saw it." The door opened inward, and Nathaniel Blackwell moved before the man outside could decide which lie to wear. He stepped into the hallway with my camera strap looped around his own wrist as if it had always belonged there. as if I were not behind him with a memory card hidden in a broken shoe and my heart trying to claw its way out of my ribs. A hotel staffer froze beside the catering cart. He was not hotel staff. His jacket fit too well across the shoulders, and the white towel over one arm still held a linen closet crease. Blackwell looked at him once, not hard, not theatrical, just enough to make the man forget whatever sentence he had practiced. "Mr. Blackwell," the man said. "I was asked to check on the photographer." Blackwell's answer came flat. "By whom?" The man's mouth opened then closed. From the ballroom, a woman laughed too loudly and a glass chimed against another glass. Normal sounds, safe sounds. They made the hallway feel uglier. Blackwell took one slow step forward, and the fake staffer rolled the cart backward with his hip. "She is with me," Blackwell said. "Tell Victor if he needs photographs, he can ask me directly." The man's eyes cut to me for half a second. That was enough to make my stomach drop. He knew my face now. Blackwell saw that too, because his body shifted, not touching me, only placing his shoulder between us. "Go." The man left the cart and walked away too fast to look innocent. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I stared at the abandoned cart, the folded napkins on top, the silver serving dome sitting slightly crooked. "Do not lift that," Blackwell said. I had not realized my hand was moving. He turned to a security guard near the service entrance. "Lock this corridor. Pull the camera feed for the last 15 minutes. The guard swallowed. "Sir, the service hall cameras are down." Blackwell went still in a way that made everyone nearby suddenly aware of their own breathing. "Down." The guard checked his tablet, then looked like he wished the marble would open under him. Maintenance flagged it before the gala. Request came through Mr. Hale's office. Victor's name landed between us like glass dropped on stone. Blackwell did not curse. He did not raise his voice. He only looked toward the ballroom doors, where music swelled and wealthy people kept pretending nothing ugly could happen under chandeliers. Then he turned back to me. "Smile." "What smile, Miss Whitaker? You're insane." "Probably. Smile anyway." Before I could argue, he opened the ballroom door and guided me through without touching my back. Heat hit first, perfume, champagne, roasted garlic, and a bright wash of flashbulbs from the official press line. 100 faces turned in that rippling way rich rooms notice scandal without admitting they enjoy it. My dress suddenly felt cheaper than it had 10 minutes earlier. My hands wanted to hide. Blackwell handed me my camera as if returning a purse to a date, not evidence to a witness. "Keep it visible," he murmured. "If they think I took it from you, you become disposable. And if they think I'm with you, then they have to be careful." That should have comforted me. It didn't. Victor stood near the donor wall, speaking with 2 board members. When he saw me beside Blackwell, his smile stayed in place, but his left hand slipped into his pocket. Across the room, the man with the red pin from beside the elevators. Blackwell leaned close enough that only I could hear him. "Do not look at him again." Of course I looked. The elevator doors opened behind the man, and for one sharp second I saw a woman inside wearing my hotel-issued press badge on a black lanyard. My badge, the one I had clipped to my bag before entering the prep room. She looked enough like me from a distance to make my skin go cold. Same dark hair, same black dress. Same camera bag over one shoulder. Then the doors closed and she was gone. I gripped Blackwell's sleeve without meaning to. He looked down at my hand, then back at my face, and this time he did not tell me to let go. "They're not looking for my camera anymore," I whispered. His jaw tightened. "No." His eyes stayed on the elevator numbers as they began to fall. "They're creating a version of you they can control." The woman wearing my badge had 17 floors to disappear, and Blackwell reached the private elevator before the doors finished sealing. He did not run. Men like him never ran in public. They made everyone else move faster. A security guard stepped into his path with one hand lifted and an excuse already forming, but Blackwell took the man's wrist, turned his badge outward, and read the name. "Daniel, if that elevator reaches the garage before I know who authorized it, you'll spend the rest of your career guarding a vending machine." Daniel went pale and touched his earpiece. I stood 2 steps behind Blackwell, close enough to see the tiny pull in the fabric near his shoulder. Close enough to smell cedar soap and cold air from outside every time the ballroom doors opened. My own hand still ached from gripping his sleeve. I curled my fingers into my palm and pretended I had meant to do that. The elevator number slid from 22 to 21. Blackwell looked at me. Your bag, what? You said the badge was clipped to your bag. I swung the camera bag forward and unzipped the side pocket. Wallet, lens cloth, 2 batteries, half a granola bar I had forgotten about. No badge, no spare apartment key either. That absence hit harder than it should have. I kept staring into the pocket, as if shame could make metal reappear. My key, I said. Blackwell's face changed by almost nothing, which was how I knew the key mattered. Who has access to your apartment? No one. My voice came out too sharp. My landlord, maybe. My neighbor feeds my cat when I work late. But she would never. I stopped because my phone buzzed inside the bag. One message from Megan, my neighbor, who hated texting full sentences. This one had only 6 words. There is a man at your door. The room tilted just enough that I reached for the nearest chair and missed. Blackwell caught the chair, not me, steadying it before it fell. He understood the difference. Call her, he said. I did. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. I tried again. Nothing around us. The gala kept breathing. Waiters moved in clean lines. Donors smiled under soft gold light. Victor Hale laughed near the bar, one hand over his heart like a man touched by generosity. I hated him so suddenly my teeth hurt. Give me your phone, Blackwell said. I held it closer to my chest. No, Claire, don't say my name like that makes you reasonable. His eyes moved over the crowd, not offended, not impatient. Someone used your badge, took your key, and scared your neighbor badly enough that she texted instead of calling. I need to trace the number and lock down your building. My building is not yours to lock down. Tonight it is. The words landed wrong. Too easy, too practiced. I stepped back and this time he let the space open. For the first time since the prep room, I saw the shape of the trap clearly. Victor behind me, Blackwell in front of me. Both powerful, both used to doors opening when they wanted something. You don't get to make my life part of your territory, I said. I have rent due Monday. I have a cat who bites strangers. I have a neighbor who brings me soup when I forget groceries. I am not one of your cars or your hotels or whatever men like you count when you sleep. The elevator chimed. The numbers stopped at 16, then climbed again. Someone had overridden it. Blackwell looked toward the panel, then back at me. For one strange second, the hard line of his mouth loosened. Not soft, tired. My younger brother said almost the same thing to me, he said, the night I told him not to drive alone. I waited for more. He did not give it, but something had slipped out and we both knew it. Daniel touched his earpiece again. Sir Garage Team found the woman. She dumped the badge in a service stairwell. No camera bag. Blackwell's jaw set. And the elevator? Stop at 16, Mr. Hale's floor, Victor's floor. My phone buzzed again before either of us moved. This time the message came from Megan's number, but it was not Megan. A photo filled the screen. My apartment door stood open, the cheap brass chain hanging broken. On my kitchen table sat a folded gala program. Under it was my spare key. The message beneath it said, "Bring the real card or the neighbor answers for you." Blackwell read it over my shoulder because I let him. I hated that I let him. His hand flexed once at his side, then went still. "I can get her out," he said. "How?" "By doing what I do." I looked at Victor across the ballroom, then at the phone shaking in my hand. "And what do I have to do?" Blackwell's voice was careful now, almost stripped of command. "Trust me for 10 minutes." A small laugh came out of me, ugly and unfamiliar. "You asked for 5 last time." "I know." He held my gaze and there was no charm in it, no ownership, just the ugly shape of a choice. Things got worse. Blackwell did not send men to my apartment with threats or speeches. He sent one woman in a navy coat who walked through my lobby carrying a grocery bag and came out 4 minutes later, with Megan tucked under her arm like a stubborn ant who had refused help until help became non-negotiable. I watched it happen on Daniel's phone from a dark service alcove behind the ballroom. Grainy security footage, no sound. Megan's gray curls were flattened on one side and she clutched her purse to her chest, but she was walking, alive. Angry, probably. I pressed 2 fingers against my mouth before relief could make a sound. Blackwell stood beside me, close enough to see the screen, far enough that my shoulder did not touch his sleeve. "She's going to a safe location," he said. "Don't ask where, over a hotel network." I nodded once. My throat felt scraped raw. On the screen, the woman in the navy coat looked up at the lobby camera and tapped her left wrist twice. Blackwell exhaled through his nose, almost silent. Clear. You have signals for this? I have signals for everything. That is not comforting. It isn't meant to be. Daniel lowered the phone, and the alcove went dim again. Beyond the half-open door, the auction had begun. A man with a velvet voice was selling a weekend in Napa to people who did not need more wine. Blackwell turned to leave, but I saw something on the edge of the service counter. A folded gala program, clean and white, tucked under a stack of dessert plates. My stomach tightened. It was the same kind left on my kitchen table. I pulled it free before Daniel could stop me. Inside, the donor list had been marked in blue ink, not names, circled initials, timestamps, elevator numbers. Beside Nathaniel Blackwell's name, someone had written 1040 East Exit, board packet transfer. Beside Victor Hale's name, 1055 Public Toast, full room, an alibi. A neat little map that made Blackwell look like the man sneaking away, and Victor looked like the man everyone could see. Claire, Blackwell said, and his voice had sharpened. I turned the page. A business card slid out and landed face up on the floor. Hale Legal Advisory. Under the printed office number, someone had written 3 words in black ink. Thomas Whitaker File. My father's name did not belong in that hotel. It did not belong under chandeliers, beside champagne flutes, or in the same ink as men who smiled while breaking into apartments. My hand went cold around the program. Blackwell reached for it, and I stepped back so fast my shoulder hit the wall. Do not, he stopped, not because he wanted to, because people like him had to practice stopping. Where did you get that name? I asked. Daniel looked at Blackwell, then found somewhere else to stare. That told me enough. You know my father. Blackwell's face, but not before I saw it. Recognition, regret. Something old, buried under discipline. I knew of him. That's a rich man's way of saying yes without paying for it. This is not the place. I laughed once quietly because the alternative was worse. My neighbor had a stranger at her door. My key was stolen. Someone put my father's name inside a threat, and you still think you get to choose the room? The auctioneer's voice rose outside. Applause followed, bright and careless. Blackwell looked toward the ballroom, then back at the card in my hand. Your father investigated Victor Hale 10 years ago. The sentence landed with no music under it. No warning, just impact. I forgot to breathe. Thomas Whitaker had lost his badge 10 years ago after evidence disappeared from a corruption case. After that, he stopped sleeping, stopped shaving most days. Stopped believing the truth mattered if powerful men could afford better lies. No, I said, but it came out too small. Blackwell stepped closer, then stopped himself again. His hand stayed open at his side. Victor helped bury the case. I didn't know that until after my brother was dead. Brother. The word from earlier returned with weight attached. My anger had nowhere clean to stand. Why did you know my name before tonight? I asked. Black looked at the card, then at the camera hanging from my neck. Because your father sent one file before he disappeared from the department. Not to the police. To my family. Daniel's earpiece crackled. He stiffened. Sir, Mr. Hale just requested Miss Whitaker at the donor wall. Publicly. Through the open doorway, Victor's voice carried across the ballroom, smooth as poured cream. And where is our talented photographer? Every head began to turn. Blackwell's eyes stayed on mine. If you walk out there alone, he owns the story. I folded the program once carefully and slipped it behind the waistband of my dress. My fingers were steady now, which scared me more than shaking had. Then I guess we give him a better one. Victor Hale turned my name into a spotlight, and for one breath I wanted to step backward into the service alcove and let the dark take me. The ballroom looked different from this side of fear. Faces blurred into diamonds, tuxedos, open mouths, lifted phones. The donor wall stood across the room, covered in gold lettering and white roses, with Victor waiting beneath it like a man about to introduce a prize horse. Blackwell moved beside me, not ahead. That was new. He had been a wall in the hallway, a locked door in the prep room, a command wrapped in a tuxedo. They matched my pace and left me visible. I noticed because every instinct in me had expected him to hide me behind his shoulder. Breathe through your nose, he said, barely moving his mouth. Don't look at the exits. I wasn't. You counted 3 already. I hated that he was right. I hated more that the simple instruction worked: air in, air out, one step, then another. My shoe pinched around the hidden memory card, a tiny blade under my heel. Victor's smile widened as we approached. "There she is," he said, "warm enough for the room. Our gifted photographer, Mr. Blackwell does have a habit of monopolizing talent." A few people laughed, not because it was funny, because Victor expected a sound and they gave it to him. Blackwell did not laugh, neither did I. Victor held one elegant hand toward my camera. "May we borrow her for a few minutes? The board wants a photograph with the scholarship recipients." "There are no scholarship recipients here tonight," I said. The words came out before I polished them, quiet but clear. The laugh that followed was smaller this time, nervous around the edges. Victor's fingers paused in the air. Blackwell's head turned a fraction toward me, and I felt him almost speak, then choose not to. He let the silence belong to me. Victor recovered quickly. "They're arriving after the toast, dear. My father used to say men reached for soft words when their hands were dirty." I lifted the camera, not to take his picture, just high enough that he had to look at the lens. "Then I should stay with Mr. Blackwell until they arrive." Somewhere behind Victor, the man with the red pin shifted his weight, a small movement. A guilty one. Blackwell saw it. I knew because his hand lowered to his side, two fingers tapping once against his cuff. Across the room, Daniel changed direction. No one else noticed. Victor leaned closer, his smile still pinned on. "Miss Whitaker, I don't think you understand how generous Mr. Blackwell has been with you tonight. I understand generosity." My voice did not shake, and that surprised me enough to keep going. "It usually doesn't involve stolen badges." The room thinned around the sentence. Conversation stopped in uneven pieces. Victor's eyes hardened for less than a second, but my camera caught it. One quiet click, his mask came back too late. Blackwell moved then, not in front of me, but near enough that his sleeve brushed mine. Not an accident, not a claim. "A warning to the room. Victor," he said, "walk with me." It sounded polite. It was not. Victor glanced at the board members, calculating which audience mattered more. Of course. As he stepped away, his shoulder passed close to mine, and his voice dropped so low only I could hear. "Your father should have taught you what happens to people who keep looking." My fingers tightened around the camera. Before fear could swallow the words, Blackwell stopped. He had heard enough. Maybe not the sentence. Maybe only the change in my breathing. He turned back, and for the first time that night, the room saw something cold slip loose from under his control. "Do not speak to her about her father." Victor went still, so did I. Blackwell's gaze stayed on him, but his hand reached sideways and took the camera strap, where it had twisted against my wrist. He loosened it carefully, freeing the skin without taking the camera from me. Such a small thing, almost nothing. But my wrist stopped hurting, my grip steadied. Victor noticed, his mouth flattened. He understood before I did. Blackwell was not keeping me beside him anymore because I had evidence. He was doing it because the evidence had a pulse. The auctioneer asked for silence, and Victor Hale gave it to him with one raised hand. That was when I understood the trap had moved from hallways into daylight. No one dragged me anywhere. No one blocked an exit. They did something cleaner. They made the whole room watch, so any step I took would look like a choice. Victor returned to the microphone beneath the donor wall, his smile restored, his cuff links catching the chandelier light. "Before our final pledge," he said, "Mr. Blackwell has asked to honor the people who make nights like this possible. The staff, the artists, the witnesses to our generosity. Witnesses," the word slid across my skin. Blackwell stood beside me so still that only the muscle in his jaw betrayed him. His hand hung near mine but did not reach. I knew he wanted to pull me out. I knew because he did not. Victor looked directly at my camera. "Miss Whitaker, would you join us for a photograph?" Phones lifted around the room. Polite curiosity sharpened. A waitress stopped with a tray in her hands. A board member whispered to his wife. The man with the red pin stood near the private elevators, one finger resting on his phone screen. Blackwell leaned close. "You don't have to go up there. If I refuse, I look guilty. If you go, he controls the frame." Then I changed the frame. I did not look at him when I said it. If I had, I might have borrowed too much courage and mistaken it for my own. The walk to the front felt longer than the hallway where all this had started. My bad shoe pressed the memory card into my heel with every step. Pain had become useful. It kept me present. Victor stepped aside to let me stand at the center of the donor wall, right beneath Blackwell Foundation in gold letters. The irony tasted metallic. "Camera, please," Victor said softly, keeping his smile for the crowd. "For the board archive." I lifted the strap over my neck slowly enough for the room to see. It was my decision, then placed the camera against my chest instead of in his hand. "I can take the photograph from here," his eyes cooled. "That would be difficult with you in it." "Not if someone else presses the shutter." A small sound moved through the room. Not laughter, discomfort. Blackwell came forward, stopping one step below the platform. "I'll do it." Victor's smile thinned. "Nathaniel, you're the guest of honor. Then they'll survive seeing my hands occupied." He took the camera from me carefully, touching only the body, not my hand. But before I let go, his thumb brushed the playback button twice. A question. I answered by shifting my weight to my left foot. The real card was not inside. His face did not change, but something in his shoulders eased. He knew where it was now, or close enough. Victor knew something had passed between us too. His gaze dropped to my shoes. For half a second too long. There. His mistake. I turned to the crowd before he could recover. "Would you like the photograph before or after, Mr. Hale explains why someone wearing my stolen press badge used the private elevator to his floor." The sentence did not sound loud to me. It sounded almost calm. Maybe shock does that. Maybe rage, when it has nowhere else to go, learns manners. The ballroom went completely quiet. Victor's face stayed composed, but his hand closed around the microphone too tightly. Blackwell did not move. That was the gift he gave me, not rescue room. "Miss Whitaker is confused," Victor said. "It has been a long evening." "It has," I said, "especially for my neighbor." A board member frowned. Another lowered his phone, then raised it again to record. Victor looked past me toward the red pin man just once. My camera in Blackwell's hands clicked. He had caught the glance. The proof was no longer only in my shoe. Victor realized it the same moment I did. His smile broke at one corner. Not much enough. Blackwell lowered the camera and spoke to the room, not Victor. "No one leaves through the east exit." The man with the red pin took one step backward. Every head turned. For the first time all night, Victor Hale had to stand in a room full of witnesses he could not edit. The red pin man did exactly what guilty people do when a room finally notices them. He tried to look bored. His shoulders lowered, his mouth bent into something close to annoyance. He even checked his watch, as if Nathaniel Blackwell had inconvenienced him with a scheduling problem, instead of trapping him between a microphone, 3 cameras, and 2 exits that no longer belonged to him. Victor recovered faster. I had to give him that. He set the microphone back into its stand with a soft click and raised both hands, palms open, the picture of wounded dignity. "Nathaniel," he said, "this is beneath you." Blackwell stood near the platform with my camera in his hands. He did not answer. He was watching Victor's left cuff. I noticed that before I knew why it mattered. The cuff link was turned inward now, not outward like before. A tiny black dot sat in the silver face, no bigger than a pinhead. My father had owned a recorder once, back when he still believed documenting the truth made truth safer. He used to tap his pen twice before turning it on, a habit, a tell. My heel throbbed around the hidden memory card, and suddenly the pain felt like a metronome. "Wait, watch, let him speak." Victor turned toward the board members. A stolen badge, a nervous photographer, a misunderstood elevator record. This is what happens when private family matters are dragged into a public charitable event. Private family matters. He looked at me when he said it, gentle enough to make strangers doubt me. "Miss Whitaker has reason to be emotional tonight." Blackwell's fingers tightened on my camera. I saw the old instinct pass through him, quick and dangerous now. "Silence the room. Take control." I stepped down from the platform and placed 2 fingers on the camera body, not taking it, just grounding it. His eyes cut to mine. I shook my head once, barely. Not yet. Something in his face resisted. Then he let the breath leave his chest and gave me the space again. Victor saw the exchange and mistook it for weakness. That was his second mistake. Her father, Victor continued, voice low with false sympathy, was a troubled man who damaged many reputations before he damaged his own. The room shifted. People love tragedy when it arrived dressed as context. My hands stayed at my sides. I would not give him trembling if he wanted trembling. Thomas Whitaker became obsessed with conspiracies, Victor said. He accused good men, loyal men. When evidence failed to support him, he blamed everyone but himself. I watched his cuff link. The black dot angled toward me. Recording maybe, transmitting maybe. Either way, Victor wanted my reaction saved. He wanted me angry, unstable, loud, the kind of woman powerful men could dismiss before dessert. So I looked past him instead at the donor wall behind his shoulder. In the polished gold letters, his reflection stood beside mine, not perfectly, slightly warped, but enough. His right hand was behind his back, passing something small to the man with the red pin as security closed in from both sides. A white hotel key card, not a weapon, not dramatic, just access. My camera lifted in Blackwell's hands, click. Victor did not hear it, he was still performing. I am sorry for her pain, he said, but grief does not make a witness reliable. There it was, the word he should not have touched again, witness. I turned slowly, giving him my full face, giving the room a calm they had not earned from me. You keep calling me that, I said, like it's an insult. Victor smiled almost kindly. It's a responsibility, no, I said. It's a problem for men who need everyone else to look away. His smile held, but his cuff hand lowered a fraction. Blackwell noticed, Daniel noticed, the red pin man did not. He was too busy sliding the key card into his sleeve. I let my weight shift, just enough to press the hidden memory card deeper under my heel. The first proof was still with me. The second proof was now inside my camera. And Victor Hale, for all his polish, had just taught the whole room which one scared him more. Victor Hale forgot that mirrors do not care who paid for the room. That was his third mistake. He stood beneath the donor wall with his kind mouth and wounded eyes, speaking to people who had spent their lives trusting the man in the cleanest suit, while behind him the gold letters reflected everything he thought he had hidden. Blackwell held my camera at his chest, not pointed at Victor anymore, pointed behind him, at the wall, at the warped shine of the foundation name, at the red pin man slipping the white key card into his sleeve. Click. The sound was small enough to vanish, but Victor heard the room change, not the camera, the room. A board member stopped whispering. A woman near the auction table lowered her champagne glass without drinking. Daniel moved toward the private elevators with 2 hotel guards behind him, calm and ordinary, as if they were about to fix a thermostat. The red pin man saw them and reached for his phone. Do not, Blackwell said 2 words, no volume. The man froze anyway. Victor turned his head just enough to see the key card half hidden at the other man's wrist. For the first time all night, his face did not find the right expression fast enough. It was only a second, less. But a second in a quiet room is a confession with better lighting. This is absurd, Victor said. Nathaniel, you're humiliating yourself. Blackwell looked at me, not for permission exactly, for timing. That small glance did something strange to my chest. He could have taken the moment, owned it, made the room remember his voice. Instead, he waited. I bent down and slipped off my left shoe. A few people looked away, embarrassed for me in that automatic way. Rich people feel shame when someone poor does something practical in public. The lining peeled back under my thumb. The memory card slid into my palm, warm from my skin, no bigger than the truth had any right to be. I held it up between 2 fingers. Victor's mouth went flat. That is not yours. He had spoken too quickly. Several heads turned toward him. Blackwell did not smile, neither did I. Funny, I said. I've been waiting all night for someone to admit it existed. Daniel took the card from me with a clean white napkin, like it was evidence at a trial instead of a gala. He inserted it into a laptop one of the hotel technicians had placed on the auction table. The big screen behind the stage flickered from the foundation logo to a grid of images. My photographs appeared in silence, Donner's laughing, white roses, Victor at the bar, the red pin man beside the elevator. Then the mirror shot filled the screen, Victor's reflection, the folded program. The past, no handshake, no misunderstanding. His face turned toward the crack in the prep room door, catching the instant he knew someone had seen. The ballroom stopped pretending to breathe. Victor's cuff link gave a tiny blink of blue light. Blackwell saw it. So did I. Your cuff, I said. Victor lowered his hand, too late. Daniel stepped close, and Victor did not resist when the guard removed the silver cuff link. Maybe he knew resistance would look worse. Maybe men like him believed dignity could survive anything if they kept their shoulders straight. The hotel technician connected it with a cable. A rough audio file opened on the screen, static first. Then Victor's voice, crisp and close, recording himself because arrogance loves backup plans. If Blackwell reaches the east exit with the board packet, he becomes the traitor. The photographer is useful only if she panics. Use the father if necessary, someone gasped. I did not. My body had gone very still, as if it had stepped aside and left only the part of me that could stand. The audio continued. Another voice asked, "And Thomas Whitaker's old file?" Victor answered, "Burn what remains. His daughter will discredit herself just like he did." Blackwell turned toward me then, not with pity. That would have broken me. He looked at me like a witness whose testimony had finally reached the right room. Victor said my name once softly. Trying to make it personal, I looked at the screen instead. At my father's name in the transcript, at the man who had buried him while smiling at charity dinners. "No," I said. "You do not get to sound gentle now." The board-chair removed his glasses with both hands. The red pin man lowered his head. Victor Hale stood beneath his own reflection, surrounded by all the people he had taught to look away, and none of them moved to save him. Victor Hale did not get dragged from the ballroom. That would have given him a cleaner ending than he deserved. He walked out between two hotel guards and one board member who had stopped calling him Victor and started calling him Mr. Hale. His cuff links were gone. His hands looked strangely bare without them. No one applauded, no one shouted. The silence did the work. The red pin man followed a minute later, pale now, his expensive boredom ruined. Daniel carried my memory card in an evidence sleeve. The hotel technician copied the files twice while the board chair stood over him, with the stiff posture of a man realizing his signature had protected a lie for years. I stayed near the stage because my legs had not yet received permission to move. One shoe on, one shoe in my hand. My father's name still glowed on the screen behind me in the transcript, plain black letters against white. Thomas Whitaker. For 10 years, people had said it with pity, caution, or that careful pause adults used when they thought grief had made you fragile. Tonight, no one knew how to say it at all. Blackwell stood a few feet away, speaking quietly to the board chair. Not commanding, not threatening. Just giving names, dates, storage locations, the kind of details that made consequences possible. When he finished, he removed a small black drive from his jacket and set it on the auction table. "The rest of your missing records," he said. The board chair stared at it. "You had these?" Blackwell's eyes flicked once toward me. "My brother kept copies. I found them too late to save him." He did not dress the sentence in tragedy. That made it heavier. The chair nodded slowly, ashamed in a way that did not ask anyone to comfort him. Around us, the gala had become something awkward, and human waiters lowered trays, donors avoided mirrors. A woman who had laughed at Victor's jokes earlier wiped under one eye and looked angry at herself for it. I sat on the edge of the stage and put my shoe back on. The lining was ruined, my heel hurt. My dress had a small tear near the waist from where I had hidden the program. None of it felt embarrassing anymore. Blackwell approached and stopped before his shadow reached my knees. "Your neighbor is safe," he said. "Your apartment is being repaired. Your cat bit one of my laugh escaped me before I could stop it." Small, cracked, reeled. Good, his mouth almost moved, not a smile, but the memory of. He held out my camera with both hands, strap untangled, lens cap on. I should have asked before taking this. I looked at the camera, then at him. The old version of him would have explained why he had been right. The man standing there only waited. "Yes," I said. He accepted that like it cost him something useful. "Yes." The board chair came over, holding the black drive like it was heavier than it looked. "Miss Whitaker," he said, voice rough, "your father deserved a public apology." I stood. For a second, I pictured my father in our kitchen, badge box unopened on the table, pretending not to hear neighbors lower their voices in the hall. I wanted the apology to travel backward. It would not. "Then make it public," said. "Not tonight in a corner. Not in a private letter. Say his name where you ruined it." The chair nodded. No argument. That was the first piece of justice that felt like it might survive morning. Outside the ballroom, the hotel lobby had emptied into the pale, quiet hour before dawn. Blackwell walked beside me through the revolving doors, not ahead. not behind. The city air was cold enough to clear the champagne and fear from my lungs. At the curb, one of his cars waited with the rear door open. He did not gesture toward it. He did not tell me I would be safer inside. He only stood with his hands in his pockets and looked at the street, as if he had finally learned not every exit belonged to him. "Claire," he said. I turned. He took a breath, then let whatever command he had planned die before it reached his mouth. "Where do you want to go?" That was the choice he gave me. Not protection disguised as ownership. Not rescue with a lock on it, just a question, clean and difficult. I looked down at my camera, at the scratched body and the strap still warm from my neck. Then I looked back through the glass doors, where men in expensive suits were gathering evidence under chandeliers that no longer made them look innocent. "Home first," I said. "Then the police, then the press." Blackwell nodded once. "I'll drive behind you, beside me," I said. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his face loosened that power had kept tied for too long. He closed the car door himself and stepped away from it. We walked to the curb together, two reflections moving across the hotel glass, equal in the gray before sunrise. For the first time all night, no one was telling me where to stand.